teacher go to school?
And here's your...
What do you think of what's going on right now, mate?
These evil little invisible parasites.
Satan-worshipping Freemason morons.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
We're not run by factions.
Get the fuck out of camera!
There are much more powerful international forces in play.
Is this pink guy? Is this what pink guy is? I don't fucking know what's happening.
Please go outside and look at the moon quickly.
It's been crazy, guys, but guess what? It's how it is, mate.
Mate, because I want to do you slowly.
Well, I ain't spending any time on it.
Welcome to the Conditional Release Program, a podcast that delves into the netherworld of cults, crims, and con artists. I'm Jack the Insider, otherwise known as Peter Hoysted for tax purposes.
And I'm Jill Hill, and today we are looking at cops and pandemic management in New South Wales specifically.
We'll be discussing friend of the podcast, Monica Smit's legal and financial woes. Why is everyone so unkind to Mon Joel?
Oh, it's a classic case of Australian short poppy syndrome, Jack.
Yeah.
It's the short blonde poppies in a long dress syndrome.
In a long summer dress, yeah. Monica is the hero we neither need, deserve, or want, but her classic version of the dramatic martyrdom did make for some quality court drama. Everyone loves a court drama, don't they? What else do we have in store, Joel?
Well, we have SovCits, Jack. You won't believe this, but they're misbehaving again.
Yeah, in court.
You leave them alone for 5 minutes and look what you get. This one is actually in deep shit. Very naughty free lady on the land, but we're saving that one for later.
Yes, it's a ripper. It turns out abusing a judge when you're facing trial charged with a serious felony may not be a good idea.
Oh.
Probably wouldn't get legal advice to do that.
Oh, well, I mean, depending. If you ask Gareth from Reignite Legal, well, who knows what he'd tell you.
Yeah. Swear and carry on.
The famously incompetent we'll get to later.
But we do have some very somber news. Now, our true friends of the podcast will remember and may well have thrown some money into Joe and his extra-large family of 14 in Vanuatu. With your help, listeners, we got Joe's house built and the family moved in before Christmas last year. But Joe passed away in August. We're not sure about the circumstances. It's likely Joe, an asthma sufferer, had an attack while going on one of his long walks. He refused to catch the bus.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Even if Rob gave him a bit of money, he'd keep the money for other things.
Squirrel it away.
He'd walk 14K, and it's likely that he had an asthma attack and died as a result. So very sad news, but Joe's benefactor, as I mentioned before, good friend of Joe's and of mine, Rob Anderson, has visited the family in Vanuatu. And while there is genuine grief, the family is staying strong. Life goes on. Imagine where the family of 13 now would be without Joe and the house our listeners help pay for. I mean, it would basically have torn the family apart, and now they have something that they can fall back on. So amidst all that grief, there's a sense of unity and security around the home. They've got, Rob tells me, they've got a number of. He helped them. He bought some seed for them when he was there just a few weeks ago, and they've got crops in, and they'll be able to grow their own food, maybe sell a little bit at the market. And as I say, life goes on. Very sad news, but at least Joe would have died a reasonably happy man, knowing that his family had a house.
Yeah, that is
that they
important.
Could call their own.
Like when you lose like an income like that, it really hits the family hard. So having something.
It
like
generally
that,
means the next oldest male will have to step up, leave school, and get work.
Yeah,
that's what it generally means. I mean, there's other things, of course, but you know, that's what life is like in the developing world.
Yeah, it's rough. It is very, very rough.
Well, what's going on with the beer sponsor, Joel? In other matters, I mean, I wore one of their T-shirts in London, and yet I remain seriously uncompensated.
Yes, I'm glad we're having this discussion in public, Jack, because I think we need to air this out like dirty laundry. You see, in the words of a great man, I quote, I hated to give overtime.
Oh, I saw that yesterday.
I'd get other people, I shouldn't say this, but I'd get other people in. I wouldn't pay. And the only thing I hate more than overtime is the bullshit concept of holiday pay.
No,
I've been self-employed since I was a fucking bub, but I've never got an ounce of it. Gallivanting around spending funny money at the cricket is not something to be rewarded.
Yes, it is.
No,
that's why they have advertising at the cricket.
No, that's for elite sportsmen and people who glom onto elite sportsmen and suck their money out of it.
That's what I was doing.
No, you weren't. You were there trying to be one and glomming badly. You see, This is the issue, though. CBCO actually feel differently about this. They fully support your endeavours, and they sent you a check. They sent it to me thinking that I would forward it on. But you know what?
Well,
I didn't because your podcasting negligence should not be rewarded, and I burned it on principle. I set fire to my letterbox because I didn't even want to see
Didn't
that.
even give it to charity. You just burnt it.
I burned it. It's better in their hands than yours. Charity. What? A charity called Peter Hoisted?
Oh,
No.
I had there was Port Melbourne on one sleeve and Margaret River on the other and CBC Co. all over my body. I might as well gone out and got tats.
You were doing the bare minimum to justify your existence, Jack. I must say, after I set fire to my letterbox, I had sure worked up a thirst. I cut through my polydipsia, yes, I did Google that word, with an ice-cold tin of CBCO Goldie. Now, most craft breweries will make shit lagers full of weird German hops and needless, unique flavour selling points. But Goldie does what it says on the box, and that should be respected.
It's
nothing
a mango.
more, nothing left.
Is it as a
Basically,
mango, as
it
they
tastes
call them in Queensland?
quite a lot like a 4X, except it doesn't have that sort of sweet shittiness to it. Anyway, it's worth your time and money. You should spend your money on it. And if you use the coupon code CRP10, you'll spend less money on it. But also, as a side note, I was told recently that there is a competition going. So if you go to cbco.beer, I believe the competition started today. There is a very fancy prize package which involves an island, a helicopter, and worth
Sounds like
entering.
sex trafficking.
And if you win,
but-
you have to take me. It's like 7 people get
You
to
have
go.
to be abducted.
It's a great place to die, I'm sure.
But we can't worry about any of this sort of criminality right now because we've got a huge show to get through. And that means right now it's time for the Conditional Release Program's news.
Good.
Now, the Sydney Morning Herald has been running a series of features on COVID management in New South Wales. It's been mostly good reporting, although a bit revisionist. We'll get on that in a minute. But one feature included interviews with a panel of infectious diseases experts, which declared that Australia is not ready for the next pandemic, which almost certainly will come. We weren't ready in 1919. We weren't ready in 2020. And by June, we'll be damned if we're going to be ready when the next one comes along.
One thing I can say for certain is that Dave O'Neiggs will predict it. And when I say that, I mean
predicted
he's constantly
after
saying
it
there's
happens.
about to be a pandemic.
Predicted
so don't worry.
after it happens.
Within
Which
a
is
fortnight of him posting.
not quite a prediction, not a prognostication.
Yes, it's pretty sad. Pretty sad.
So that was an interesting feature, but the one that caught my eye was a panel of 6 bureaucrats, or retired bureaucrats, most of them anyway, Nationals MP and former Deputy Premier Paul Toole, Western Sydney Leadership Dialogue Chief Executive Adam Leto, Tourism and Transport Forum's Margie Osmond, former President of Local Government New South Wales and City of Sydney Councillor Linda Scott, and there's a sort of long list of kind of nobodies there. Former New South Wales Police Commissioner Mick Fuller. And it was Mick Fuller's comments that I was interested in as the top cop in the state at the time of the COVID pandemic. He was responsible for creating police orders around the health orders. And the article leads off, Joel.
Yes. So, the beer hit me. A panel of 6 experts, which included Fuller, convened by the Sydney Morning Herald to interrogate New South Wales' approach to lockdowns and policing, agreed that the health orders lacked clarity, should have been more localised, and continued for too long once COVID-19 vaccines were available. The health orders also risk creating serious social division. Yeah, they did. Fuller said that the health orders were fast-moving and did not pass the usual parliamentary scrutiny of any other legislation. And for the first 3 months of the 2020 lockdown, New South Wales Police did not have a legal representative at the table as the orders were drafted. Orders they had to fucking enforce.
Yes, that's right. He said there was this. Mick Fuller said there was a light-level approval process. Brad Hazzard, now also retired Minister for Health at the time, would sign off, and ultimately that would empower those orders. Then police had to operationalise those as best as possible. That's what the former Commissioner of New South Wales Police said. According to Fuller, the health orders changed often, and the cops had to essentially criminalise offences around those changing circumstances. He only recommended one new offence, and that was a $5,000 on-the-spot fine for, and I quote Mick Fuller, people who cough or spit on health workers, police, pharmacists, paramedics, or other public officials. And that did become a law during the pandemic. Not sure if it's still around. And it's a fairly reasonable point. It would be a terrible thing, and we did see a bit of it during the pandemic.
Yes.
But I believe spitting on someone, perhaps not coughing, but I believe spitting on someone could lead to an assault charge. Certainly in the US, it can lead to battery.
Sure.
If you spit on someone, people get dragged. I see it all the time.
Then you have to drag them through court. The $5,000 on-the-spot fine is a way of – this is basically the pandemic in a metaphor. Policing something that may very well go mental in a way that doesn't destroy society while it can't function properly. You can't have a situation where every fucking cooker who spits on a nurse thinking they're making some kind of stand against tyranny is then dragged through a fucking 14-day trial where they represent themselves, call themselves a free man on the land, and basically just waste everyone's fucking time. You give them a $5,000 fine.
Sure enough, yeah.
And you tell them to get
on
fucked.
the spot fine, which would be which would be very, very difficult to fight.
Imagine so. And I imagine what it would be is that if you chose to fight the fine, then you would face the more advanced assault charges and things like that, which would involve much steeper
or at
penalties,
least the prospect
possibly
of them.
incarceration.
Yes. Yeah. Look, we can say that Fuller's criticism is a case of revisionism. It's always in the
it always
mirror,
is.
and it is a bit self-serving.
Everyone's a fucking genius with a time machine.
Yeah, that's right. Look, the facts are that 33,121 of the 62,138 fines handed out for breaches of the health orders were withdrawn after Revenue New South Wales conceded in court that they were not valid. So they'd made laws that were not ultimately enforceable.
Yeah, and it was very tricky when they were enforced because you found that places like Western Sydney where maybe kids were out in the streets flaunting the public health laws, but maybe their houses weren't great places to be. Maybe they're in a situation where their dad's a prick.
Oh, well, yeah.
Or maybe there's just nothing there for them. I mean, we didn't do the lefty due diligence on that. Not that cookers give a fuck about any of that. They just moan about freedom and liberty when it comes to them going to the gym or going to the pub. But a lot of poor kids were probably really struggling to reconcile the idea of being stuck in a house with possibly, useless dad and fuckwit siblings.
Well, so we had a
situation.
I mean, basically, these six people were saying, this panel of six was saying, some of the advice needed to be localised according to, I guess, where there were cases, et cetera, but then went on to criticise the isolation of parts of Western Sydney while people were having picnics on Bondi Beach.
That was the other thing that was weird when they go to the
Western
beach
Sydney,
and be like,
or parts of it went into lockdown.
get off the beach.
A curfew implemented. I tell you what, if we ever have another pandemic, and we most certainly will, can we not have curfews? I mean, what the fuck is the point of a curfew?
Well, we've been through this.
It's only about control.
You told me what curfews were about, and it's exactly to the core of what this is about.
Yep.
It is the fact that it makes a really easy situation out of a complex one.
For police to identify
takes all the
miscreants.
nuance out. You don't need a genius to say anyone out after 8 p.m. is committing an offence. When you start putting nuance on it, you're requiring your police to be intelligent. And I'm not saying all cops are dumb in any way, shape, or form, but I am saying some of them are, and I am saying they have guns.
Oh no,
so,
it's just easy. So
it's easy. That's why you do
what
it.
I would like to have what I've liked to have heard. This wasn't a Q&A thing with reporters, but I would have liked Mick Fuller to address that issue about curfews, why he felt it was necessary, or if he felt it was necessary.
Did we have curfews in New South Wales, or was that a Victoria thing? I don't even remember.
It was very much a Victoria thing, but there was a curfew implemented in Western Sydney when they went into their specific lockdown. If you're a construction worker in this particular part of Western Sydney that was locked down, you couldn't work, whereas anyone else in the state could work in construction. You might remember that Victoria had a different approach. But in New South Wales, construction work carried on, but those people who lived in that part of Western Sydney that was locked down were not allowed to work.
And that's the reason why one of the bigger anti-lockdown protests was one of the bigger anti-lockdown protests. And they turned up and they were they were pissed off, and they were pissed off
And
in a
had
way
every right
that was
to be.
very expressive.
You know,
It
like
wasn't
I
just
said,
Cook
they
were
were-
angry though. It wasn't. It was much
They
more
were,
driven.
they were looking at the television and people having a swim in Bondi and out and about and no controls. We might remember that the source of that particular infection was a driver who was much put upon and just total nonsense from the media.
Yeah,
But it all started in the eastern suburbs. Is my point.
Well, yeah. I mean, the rumor about the Northern Beaches lockdown is that Mark Wahlberg didn't quarantine and came in to promote his Wahlburgers alongside
sounds like a
Roma
conspiracy
Starker,
theory.
the amazing character from United Cinemas whose son's a bit evil. And apparently he brought it in and went around Palm Beach looking at gift shops and shit. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, can I get your autograph?" And he said, "Yes, you can." And
Yeah, I don't know. Aren't we supposed to be sort of knocking off conspiracy theories here, not creating them?
look, I'm just saying that I heard from a
I
bird
heard,
that
yeah.
Marky Mark
My
was the
sister's
reason
brothers.
why. The other reason why, which isn't a conspiracy theory,
Pedicurist
this is
told
mainstream media, it's because people at Av Bowling Club were licking the dance floor. So, sorry, that's a quote.
But they do that every Saturday night anyway.
Well, yeah, and Thursdays.
Look, basically, those people in Western Sydney, they were locked down, as we said, allowed out for 1 hour a day, had a curfew implemented, and a lot of the fines were generated. Of those 62,000 fines issued, a lot of them were generated in that particular part of New South Wales. Well, these people weren't just thumbing their nose at the health orders just for the hell of it, just for freedom.
Yeah.
But they were doing it because they needed to get out, to work, to earn money. A lot of casual employment. A lot of those were not considered sort of emergency workers or delivery workers or anything like that, but they needed to get out. Some did not have, any decent internet connection, and with English as a second language, they were not kept up to date properly. So there was a communication gap there, most certainly.
Which
now,
is
I know
a hard
we're
one
talking
to
about
fill.
Sydney. We probably should look at Melbourne and the other major cities as well. I mean, Melbourne was locked down for a very long time.
We weren't there, to be fair, so we might need to get a guess for that. But
Well, I was there in the time in the various times when the lockdowns were lifted, because I had to get down to see my mum.
yeah.
And it was always nerve-wracking because you thought, they're going to bang it in again.
Never be
and
able
I'll be
to come
trapped.
home.
I won't be able to get over the border, or they give you
Exactly.
about 12 hours to get over the border.
Those border closures were surreal. I mean, it really was a very strange time in our lives.
Yeah. So, look, I guess my point is there a better way than using the, obviously sort of sledgehammer approach of policing when the next pandemic comes, Joel?
I obviously don't know, and I probably, not being an expert, blah, 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 probably shouldn't. But one thing I can say, like in retrospect there, is when they locked down that public housing tower, and I'm not fucking saying that everyone in a house is on fucking drugs. Imagine if you're in a situation, especially heroin, but even just weed. Like, I used to smoke a shitload of weed, and like if I ran out, like I wasn't in a good spot. And they say, like, oh, it's not addictive. Well, I was addicted to marijuana, and you go fuck yourselves. And in that situation, if there were a bunch of cops around, like holding me into a place, me being very white middle class, I would have found a fucking way around to go see my mate. There's no way. And if that half queue was short, I would have been furious because it had to last me another week and a half. So when it comes down to more serious addictions like opiates, methamphetamine, no-brainers, like, look, I'm not saying that people in public housing all fucking druggies and blah, blah. But if someone
I think you're almost there, but these are people who are living in entrenched poverty as well. So that poverty is not just economic, it's intellectual.
Well, you can't just order Uber Eats in that situation. There was aid packages and stuff like that.
And you do have language issues arising.
Yeah.
So, people can watch the news and, be watching whoever it is, Jennifer Kite, whoever, I think reads the news on one of the channels in Melbourne. And they sit and watch it, regardless of the notifications that have been put forward. These people are not going to appreciate what's going on.
No, it's not great. And,
yeah,
and of course, the issue now is that we have the conspiracy theory movement, we have the freedom movement, and we have people who are ready to be mobilized against any kind of public health measure, and they know how to do it now. So I think that cookers have learned more about disrupting public health measures than public health bodies have learned about controlling infections. And if the next one is more contagious or more deadly, I would strongly surprise, unless it was like Ebola-esque bleeding out of eyeballs, I can't see cookers getting on board and saying that it's bad. They would need to basically have people die in front of them to
You
then
almost
be
have
like,
to
oh, maybe this is real.
accept, if you're going to sort of take police not out of the equation, but don't make them responsible for, the issue of fines, etc., and no one else, and you don't develop your communications, get into houses, get into homes, get into individuals' minds a bit easier. You're going to have to accept that you're always going to have these cookers who are going to thumb their noses at whatever pandemic management restrictions are put in place.
If there's an information vacuum or even a perceived information vacuum, which is the same thing, then they're going to fill it with bullshit. And it will be sensational. It'll be much more interesting. It'll be easy to digest. It'll be in video form. It'll be titillating. And, I mean...
And they'll have Elon Musk. And they'll have Elon Musk on their side. The other thing to say is, and it's probably the most important point, we talked about revisionism. When the pandemic hit, and as various forms of it came into the community, and some of them quite bad, lethal, had large amount of lethality attached to them. The great fear of all public administrators in Australia and around the world was that their health systems would collapse. And
Yes.
indeed it did in places like Italy.
Which did happen in places like New
in
York,
the UK,
et cetera.
in the state of New York, that you'd have, your hospitals jam-packed and refrigerated trucks outside, along with triage tents and people
Bring
being
out your
treated in
dead.
tents. Yeah.
Dead.
So
I mean, like, that's not good.
this is what was front of mind of our politicians at the time.
Quite reasonably so.
And it is their duty to listen to the health advice and act on it. But perhaps they might have said, well, maybe we can, perhaps they should have sat down with the people and said, look, maybe we can keep this bit open, we can keep these things open, we can deal with this a different way.
It's
but
friction, though.
Just
You
wondering how we
can't
get
do it.
around this rather, the sledgehammer approach of law enforcement.
The thing that we know is that that approach doesn't work.
Who are not grandstanding, who are not Monica Smits, who are not the
Bloviating fuckbags of the internet.
Yeah, the Oneeks and those sorts of people around the place. Because they're going to be there anyway. And
if
I
they're
guess
not there,
arguably
someone
you would
else will
say
take
there
their
are
space.
more of them now.
Yes, and also
Yeah, but they
people
probably
have the
were
playbook.
in 2021. I suspect that they've dropped off. I mean, we do remember, the 800 billion people who were at Canberra. I mean,
Oh, totally.
I'll take that back to about 40,000, but that was a significant number.
Oh, yeah.
And when they tried to redo it the following year, got about 12 people.
Yeah, and that's the thing that happens. When crisis happens, people will turn up, people will congregate, people will really rally. But the thing is if you look at for example, like the Libertarian rally on the weekend, which we're going to cover this week, we'll probably do another week because it is interesting what happened. There was some pretty funny drama. Basically, there's still, a couple of thousand people all up who are interested in this sort of stuff. Now, they held on grand final weekend, which is hilarious. That would have really dented numbers and a real oversight from the geniuses who planned it.
Not a good idea.
No, don't put on... Anyway, but outside of that, they still got, triple figures. Cookers said it was thousands, but cookers are stupid. But yeah, there were still hundreds of people there. And this is a thing, we didn't really see, or at least I don't remember seeing, far right-wing activism and organisation until the pandemic. And those groups have remained. And while people have dropped off and influencers have given up and gone back to their day jobs and, stopped bothering people on the internet, I mean, we still do have a core of disaffected, weird motherfuckers who still have the merch from the pandemic, still feel very just betrayed.
Isolated.
Or they'll be isolated now because no one wants to fucking talk to them because the internet has so much content for them to then parrot at the pub. Just like I used to do fucking back in the day, whinging about Bill Gates and fluoride. And people just used to be like, shut up. But now people are just like jack of it. But you've got these other communities. I had nowhere to go. there was nowhere that I could think of where I was going to get accepted for my weird bullshit. When people told me to shut up, I just sort of like begrudgingly did, sort of, a little bit. Not really.
You'll never be Monica Smit. Joe.
I was so fucking annoying.
At the point, I guess, just back to that original point about policing. So we did see our premiers, regardless of which state you're in, pretty much daily briefings, quoting the health advice, often giving the numbers. In fact, Dan Andrews, I know, was the one who would always hand down the numbers as they went.
North Face jackets.
And yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I don't think. I mean, what I struggled to understand with the long Melbourne lockdown was why they had to get to 0 community infections before they could open up again, and that seemed to me to be overkill.
Overkill, yes,
and look,
until it's
I'm not an infectious diseases expert, so what I would have liked to have seen was the health officials and the premiers around the country explaining why that was important, or maybe it wasn't. It was just easy. But yeah, that was one thing that sort of
I feel like that was an easy one. We got to Donut Day, because when it came down to it, the only thing that was worse than Donut Day was 800, otherwise known as 2 donuts and 2 donuts arranged like a cock.
Yeah, I know. Twitter went bananas on that sort of stuff.
He did a cock and balls out of fucking donuts. I mean, come on, you can't let that slip.
That was
That's
Smithy,
too
wasn't
good.
he? I tell you, whatever that was. Well, I know he quoted that the Liberal Party politician who had a big prang and basically terminated his political career.
Oh, what, the one who drove into a
swoop.
fence?
Drunk as a monkey.
Oh, fuck,
Yeah.
what's his name? He had that.
It was Smith, but Tim Smith.
Tim Smith, yeah. He's got like a sort of like, he looks like a sort of velociraptor, or like he's got fetal alcohol syndrome or something. His eyes are sort of small. It's very strange.
I'm not sure about that, but
Look, I'm not saying he's got fetal alcohol syndrome. I'm just saying that is a symptom of it.
I guess the answer is you're always going to have some policing element.
I suppose. I don't know what fills the vacuum.
I do struggle to this day with the idea of, sort of coppers running around warning kids to stay off swings and slides and things like that. I found all that to be excessive, and I think even Fuller accepted that.
Oh, you have to. It's silly in hindsight. The idea that the beach is a super spreader, it's like it's hot and it's open air. 2 things that COVID hates. But we didn't know, and we didn't know.
But we knew. But certainly by 2021 we did. And
that's, as you say, the length of the COVID restrictions were.
Yeah, I can understand pretty much everyone shitting bricks throughout 2020. This is when Northern England was just a disaster. The NHS was on the verge of collapse.
Yeah,
Italy's public health system was on the verge of collapse, particularly around Northern Italy. And of course, we remember the scenes from New York.
I was in Italy when it actually
refrigerated trucks
landed in Italy, and the lady whose Airbnb we were staying in ran out with masks and gave us 2 of her masks. She only had like 10 of them. It was a very profound gesture. She was very lovely. I was there doing some disability care work for someone who was doing an overseas trip, and it was wild. Like, we're just at a bus stop, and this lady that we're just like, what the fuck is she doing? She's running toward us with, what the fuck is that? She's like, take the mask, take the mask.
You must have a mask. Oh, lovely.
It was wild. It was a very strange baptism to COVID-19. Let's get the fuck out of here.
So there's always going to be a need for enforcement when you've got that sort of restraint or restriction on the community. There is going to be a need for an enforcement. I think police should be briefed to be of a fairly light touch, and perhaps they weren't always like that. But I was really interested to see what Fuller had to say, because using that real sort of bureaucratic term, operationalise, which is not really a word, but
I like it. It sounded now. So awkward.
Because they had to try and figure out how they were going to police the whole thing as they went. So they were sort of making it up as they went along as well.
Yeah, which many of us do. It's
but
just
I think
when it comes to
we need
arm
to
of the
have
state,
better
it's high
communication. We probably need to have politicians who are going to question the health advice a little bit more. But
not for political dumbass fucking reasons. You can't trust politicians to do that.
The whole idea, and this is something that was mentioned in the article, remember the Ring of Steel? We had the Ring of Steel, and I think they had a Ring of Steel in Melbourne as well, where the New South Wales government, state government, just said, well, these roads are all basically, are going to be closed. This is particularly around the Western Sydney lockdown, and local government owned those roads, and they weren't even consulted.
Yeah. So
there's a lot of things there that you can fix up. Having said that, we didn't learn a thing from the Spanish influenza pandemic 100 years ago.
No,
not a thing. I mean, basically, the history of that is that in 1913, the Commonwealth Department of Health was created, and then as World War I came to a conclusion, we could actually see this before the days of commercial aviation. We could actually see the pandemic coming our way.
Yeah.
So all the state premiers, territory leaders, prime minister and health department officials all sat down. They signed a document, all the premiers and the prime minister at the time. Who would that have been? Oh, Billy Hughes. And they signed a document saying we're going to allow the Commonwealth Department to do pandemic management for the entire country. And that lasted as long as it took for two New South Welshmen. They were actually returned servicemen who were demobbed in Melbourne off the boat, and they just wandered up and crossed the border and ended up in Sydney, where they were found to be positive for Spanish influenza. And everyone went bananas and closed the borders. There were camps on both sides of the borders with people, a lot of returned servicemen. There was a border camp. They were sort of makeshift camps. There was a border camp on the Tweed where, well, I guess state government officials came in and at least put in sort of portable toilets or toilets of a kind, and walked away. The job done. Hadn't put any women's toilets in. So it was pretty rough and ready. We just had the trouble when you have a pandemic in this and it affects Australia. We have disparate health departments around the country that are owned and operated by the state governments, and they will always have different responses. And that's something we'll probably never, ever fix.
One thing that I'll just go back on the Ring of Steel, which I've just found, I wanted to find some cooker takes on this on Telegram. I couldn't find them. I thought, oh, fuck, that's right. Twitter's full of cookers now. So I had a look on Twitter. I couldn't really find too much. But I did find here that the Ring of Steel didn't happen around southwestern Sydney, and that is because Fuller basically refused to do it. His quote is that there were 330 roads they wanted me to lock down. It was logistically imposable, but it was morally wrong as well.
That's right. He and like I say, the local government had not been consulted.
Yeah, that's right. It said there that basically the other flaw is that poor governments who own the roads had not been consulted, which is exactly it. So it was that thing of like from the bureaucracy saying, here's a brain fart, let's do this. And then someone who's more boots on the ground sort of turning around and going, well,
we can't. There's all sorts of problems. I mean, we can, but it'll look like, the Soviets in Budapest.
Yeah, it's not great. And of course, the comments that I've seen on
56,
these things are mostly people just having weird tantrums and flailing around. But like, I mean, that's the thing. Unfortunately, this is the thing about democracy. It's like, dickheads vote. We live next door to dickheads. We go to the shops with dickheads. We employ dickheads. We live in a society and we need to accommodate dickheads. And unfortunately, the next pandemic is going to have a really big part of the consideration to the response. How are we going to accommodate our biggest dickheads? And not in a way that is nasty, because it became very adversarial and very
all the
unpleasant.
Messaging. This is,
but it has to be considered because they exist and they've got rights. Which is good.
A lot of the messaging, particularly from politicians, and it's not just pandemic related, but it certainly wasn't. It is aimed at the sort of lowest common denominator. So, they
lowest hanging
don't
fruit.
use big words, and there's a lot of. I mean, look, we spent the first 3 months of the pandemic being told to wash our hands, being told about hand hygiene.
Yeah, and it was kind of meaningless in the end.
Hand hygiene is so important. Really, it is.
Hand hygiene is important, but not for COVID. COVID goes in droplets.
Yeah. It's very
out
important.
your sweet coffee hole, and then you breathe them in, and then you get COVID.
Yeah, but the virus can be around for a while. So hand hygiene is very, very important. But
the funny thing about the hand hygiene thing is that got rid of the cold.
When you're dealing with an intelligent population, and you do have to dumb down all this sort of messaging, and that affects your communications as well.
Exactly, and when also you spend so much time saying, "Okay, wash your hands, wash your hands."
Don't forget to wash your hands, folks.
We would have seen such an amazing drop in just basic diseases just as a result of people finally washing their hands, not like they weren't told 400,000 times in school. But then it's like, okay, no, now you need to wear a mask. And you just told me to wash my hands. Now, I personally think that I wasn't overwhelmed by advice in that regard. Wash your hands, wear a mask. Okay, I can do both of those things. I'm not panicking from this. But people did. They shit themselves. Look, what the fuck, man?
Well,
fucking wash hands, man. Fucking wear a mask.
We could never forget the toilet paper wars.
Oh, my God. Well, I use a fucking handheld shower douche anyway, so I recommend all of our listeners get one. You get it on eBay, install it illegally.
Yeah, but if you've got a lot of caked matter there.
Water is the best thing. All you're doing is swooshing it around. You toilet paper dorks are flawed.
You've got to wipe some of that stuff away as a starting point.
No, water.
But yes,
every
we
day,
do have magnificent
time,
stinks in supermarkets. Look, the answer is not the answer. There's no real answers here. It's just that when we, as these group of infectious diseases experts said, we will not be prepared for the pandemic. Structurally, we handicapped in the way that we'll deal with this. I think one of the biggest issues that we had, and no one really mentions this anymore, is that Australia locked down. Australia locked itself away from the world, and that was because Scott Morrison refused to allow military facilities as quarantine. So instead, people were shuffled off planes and into hotel rooms with a gap under the door that, a virus could be 1,000 times, the COVID virus could be 1,000 times bigger and still make its way under that door.
Yeah, that was problematic. And
so that was a failure. That's a straight out judgment call.
And they wound up spacesuiting the fucking hotels, which is so expensive and so
Do you
painful.
remember those poor buggers who were led out of their hotel onto a bus? God only knows where they're going. I don't remember. But they had garbage bags over their bodies.
Jesus.
So it was all, we are a smarter country than that.
Yeah,
we are a smarter country than that.
But we need resources, and we do need a cooperative populace who are ready to roll their sleeves up, whether it be for a vaccine or just to be a fucking team player and not being an individualistic cunt who says, you know what? No, I'm going to do what I want to do.
You're always going to have those people as well. So you've got to manage that.
They're going to give 100 people the disease, and it will grow exponentially from there, and we'll never be able to get on top of it as a result of a few selfish fucks, which is exactly what we saw during the pandemic version 1. And now, I must say, cynical, sure, but my pandemic response is good luck. We've learned that the best effective response is just to be an impatient, selfish shit until society just gives in, tired and bored.
What we saw was the risk,
nonsense.
not first time, but what we did really see was the phenomenon of this kind of the rise of the narcissists, really.
Oh, fuck yeah.
And we're going to be talking about one in a moment.
Ooh.
The people who just decided that the pandemic was going to be the moment where we all had to turn our attention towards them, look at them and listen to them.
And also just no sacrifice, no sense of sacrifice. They will bleat about Anzac Day until the cows come home. But the moment that society asks something from them, and I don't believe that going to war in fucking Gallipoli is a form of, sacrifice for your fellow man in a lot of ways.
Well, most certainly is.
Well, it's fucking tragic. It's you being sent to a slaughterhouse.
I think 8,607 Australians perished there.
Yeah, by asshole English generals who fucking use them as cannon fodder. It's terrible.
Yes and no. It's a bit more complicated than that. But,
sure.
But obviously when you talk about spirit of Anzac, it's also Western Front.
Oh, yeah, no. I get it.
New
What I'm
Guinea,
saying is
all this sort of stuff. And it is built on sacrifice. It is built on the notion that you as a young man or young woman are going to go and serve your nation.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different to these clowns like Monica Smit.
Well, exactly. But the thing is...
Who are
is
self-serving.
They are not only just self-serving, but
But
something
they
that is
use,
a fraction.
but they
a fraction of that they won't
contemptuously
do.
use the sort of spirit of
But they'll use that
Anzac and the
spirit.
bravery of servicemen and women.
I mean, I still maintain that Gallipoli is a tragedy, and a tragedy that
Well, it
was
certainly
basically...
ended up that way. I mean, we can talk about this till the cows come home, Joel, but the fact is the fucking Russian naval frigates bombarded the Gallipoli Peninsula, which gave the Turks enough time to go, gee, something's happening here. We better throw our best troops there into the peninsula to reinforce it. And by the time the landings came and they were all disastrous, out of place, all this sort of stuff, the casualties on both sides were almost even.
What?
About 55,000 each. So when we talk about the Entente forces, that's French, Russian, Australian, New Zealand, English, of course, Indians. There were Indians who died, who perished at Gallipoli.
We don't talk about them.
And I presume Nepalese, but I'm not quite so sure about that.
Yeah.
And 55,000 and about 55,000 Turkish soldiers as well.
No
So
shit.
in the end, the thing was utterly pointless. It was the battle between the generals. The generals didn't want it. So Kitchener was the leader of the army, and he actually advised against the Gallipoli Peninsula. Problem is, on the Western Front, they'd already fought themselves to a standstill within the space of less than 6 months from a declaration of war.
Well, my
so
general
there were
point
people
was
around
that
and said they were known as the Easterners. They included Winston Churchill, and they said, well, we'll go at them through the Dardanelles, but they just got everything wrong about it.
yeah, but like the original thing is that when it comes to a sense of national service, these guys won't even do something that will immediately preserve the lives of their community, their immediate community, immediately.
It's completely antithetical to what we might call that cliche spirit of Anzac.
And yet, every year, they make it all about them. There's the narcissism. There's the narcissism.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Speaking
it's
of
time to
narcissists,
have a deeper look into these horrid people, Joel.
yes, with a little bit of a cooker update.
There we go.
Cows have fucking masks on.
Everybody is up for the high jump if they deserve it. If they deserve to hang, they will hang.
Rise up, Australia. Men of Australia, time to step up and be real men. Protect your kids or go down biggest cowards this country has ever seen. Hang that animals.
It has been a while since we did a cooker update, though we did get some excellent cooker nonsense from good friend of the podcast, Dave, recently, who we do hope to have back on soon because he's very good at following these people in a very intimate and intense kind of way. But all the latest cooker news, despite the hiatus, the public hiatus, as they mentioned recently on the Patreon, the Tinfoil Tales podcast is where it's at, of course. Now, while they might seem quiet on the actual podcast feed, if you subscribe to their Patreon, you'll get email updates on what's happening in the Cookerverse. And it's worth joining the Patreon, but it's almost worth joining Elon's Twitter just to follow them and their podcast account.
It's easier now. As you say, it's easier now. You can find these cooked units on X.
Yes, they're prolific.
Look, but while watching hours of Dave Guru Graham predicting the end of the world because he saw a pattern on a chip packet, it might be fascinating. Neither of us have had time to look at what the delusional far right in Australia have been up to, but we have a few fun morsels because, if anything, we are professionals and we know what the punters want. Just my latest guru thing, Joel, was that he has predicted, and this is something that Sauce brought up on X, that he has discovered that Halloween, October 31, falls on Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's good.
That's, good. The calendar, it's just a mystery. It's just a mystery.
Yeah. We've talked about the Gregorian calendar before, and look, it's a tough one. 12. Odd number.
Yeah, cannot have Halloween on the 31st of October, All Saints Day the next day on 1 November, but none of that has anything to do with the Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
unless you watch the movie.
What about string theory, bro? Have you thought about string theory, bro?
No. That's not going to work.
You didn't think of quantum physics.
And he was someone had brought it to his attention, and he just went, wow.
Incredible.
So, yes, astonishing stuff.
He's a very weird human being. Anyway, I find him insufferable and annoying, but I do like the highlights reel vaguely. So first up, let's look at Monica Smit.
Yeah.
So for details on the court cases, you really do need to go back to Tinfoil Tales on this one because they've done some really good episodes on this and they've actually done like proper detail. Like Soz kept an actual eye on the case, really like watched it, documented it, has some excellent insights what went down. Really, really good. Obviously, if you've missed it, you have to revisit it. But generally speaking, if you did miss the entire thing, Monica basically took Vic Pole to court, Victoria as a state, claiming her arrests were at some sort of anti-lockdown protest at one point were illegal. I'm going to be paraphrasing and make things brief because this is a long segment. Now, she claimed on the day to have a work permit, and she had a little badge that said she had a mask exemption. I think one of the cops that was in the box said that it was a Bunnings badge that they had made at Bunnings sort of thing. Really very dry.
I think there was evidence presented that her doctor said, no, you don't have a mask exemption. But she won the day, I think, with the GP.
No, that's exactly right. So basically,
important to remember though, when she was arrested, she was detained, but she was not taken to the lockup.
No, I think she was detained in a paddy wagon. But
on one occasion, I think on another, she was sort of
kids down south
made to stand aside for a couple of hours or for an hour.
The indignity while she's yelling, "This is good for me. It's great content.
Film me,
video.
Film me."
Yeah, I know, right? So, as you just mentioned, yes. It turns out she wrote her own work permit, and the note from the doctor basically said, Monica reckons she's like asthmatic or anxious.
Monica
or something.
reckons, yeah.
I don't think she is, really. She reckons she is. Cool. Here's a note that says she reckons she is. Don't fucking tell me that I said it. I didn't, so thanks. Of course, you don't need to present the proof. It's that sort of like, Schrodinger's fucking medical evidence thing where it's like, I have a letter, but you can't see it. It's really quite profound and stupid. So when it came down to this, you had Monica there screaming that she had valid excuse to be there, whether it be to be a journalist or whatever, but she relied on her medical note as what one could call absolute proof.
How is Mike going these days? He looks like he's on the pipe.
Oh, actually, that's a bit of a side note. Did you not see this? You would have seen this. That he is doing a coupon code for MyPillow, 1488. Did you not see that?
No, I didn't.
It's real special.
Or if I saw it, looked at it briefly and it didn't gel, but now
MyPillow is like famous for doing discounts, and they finally did the coupon code of 1488. If people don't know, 14 is the 14 words, which is a parable about the white race, blah, blah, blah. And 88 is the code for HH because eighth letter of the alphabet.
Oh, Hitler. That's the eighth letter of the alphabet. The H is the eighth letter
or
of the alphabet.
Adolf Hitler, depending on who you hang out with. So, yeah.
Now, over the course of a couple of weeks, including a break because Monica got sick. Oh, probably COVID. Who knows, but could have been. And may well have picked it up from her contagious father who joined the gallery in the court before actually recovering from COVID. Do we know this? How do we know this?
Oh, he was famously infected with COVID, and then he came to the court coughing all over everyone from behind them.
God, you'd love to be in there.
The defense, if I was the defense, I would A, got like a proper P2 mask on, N95 style to the hilt, and B, I would have been like, can I not be in the same room as this motherfucker? Can we have him expelled from the gallery?
Unfortunately, our courts are public, Joel.
Well,
and all are welcome, generally speaking. Sometimes
the pandemic is over, asterisk. I would still be fucking getting that guy kicked out. That being said, the fact that defense staff didn't actually get COVID is because COVID is fake. So that's good. Glad we established that.
Anyway, so she missed it, but she missed a few days. I think she missed nearly a week, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but she got a half-decent result. Turns out 2 of the 3 arrests were unlawful, as determined by the county court in Melbourne.
That's
Good
right.
Lord, part the heavens. The patron saint of PAC has once again been vindicated. She was awarded $4,000 for her momentary inconvenience on the day. Well, it was a little bit more than a moment, but, she missed probably, I think it was probably about 3 hours in total. Not really worth the effort, but a decent little packet, and she gets her costs paid for, right? Right? She won, didn't she?
Yeah. There is a catch, listeners. There is a catch. There's always a catch. This is the law we're talking about here. So, look, I haven't done remedies at law school yet, but generally speaking, if you win, you get your costs from the other party. This is referred to in legal parlance as costs follow the event.
Yes.
What a meaningless fucking sentence. I hate legal speak. But the way Monica said this half-heartedly at the cost hearing was really hilarious. I believe costs follow the event. So what does that mean, Monica? I don't know. Yeah, thanks, mate. Good input.
But didn't I look good saying it?
Your Mackenzie friend is worth every fucking penny they charged illegally. Anyway, it's annoying legal parlance, but this is what it sort of means. The full expression comes from Rule 42.1 of the Uniform Civil Procedure Rules and probably some fucking court case from England 1,000 years ago. And it states this.
General rule that costs follow the event. Subject to this part, if the court makes any order as to costs, the court is to order that the costs follow the event unless it appears to the court that some other order should be made as to the whole or any part of the costs.
And that's the discretion aspect, right? Yeah. So that's fine. That's cool. Generally speaking, when it comes to cost, it's meant to be a disincentive. It's meant to make people think twice about litigation. And essentially, it's protecting the overarching purpose, which in summary, without spending 6 months in law school, is to avoid litigation when possible, to avoid wasting the court's time. That's the general thing. And it's funny because the paramount duty of a lawyer is generally known and seen to be to their client, but it's not. It's to the court.
Yes.
The client's interests are actually a fucking far distant second. Not all lawyers probably behave that way, but that's the reality. You are meant to serve the court and pursue your client's interests, in sort of parallel at best. So while Monica only got vindication for 2 of the 3 arrests, it's not unreasonable to think the judge would consider the sort of public interest aspects of the case, the unlawful nature of the arrests that were proven to be unlawful, and sort of come to the conclusion that at the very least, each party should pay their own costs. So Monica gets off with paying application fees and wasting a bunch of time.
There's a bit more. Yeah, go on.
Well, yeah, she says it was, but it's not.
I mean, look, she's claiming a lot more, but we'll get to the instance of her insistence of a witness.
Oh, yes, and that is very much her own fucking fault. But yes, we will get to that point. But that's the thing. Each party pay their own costs, no worries. That's a reasonable decision for the judge to make. But no,
in many civil cases, yes.
No. So in the words of Judge Tran, quote, I am not satisfied that this litigation can fairly be described as public interest litigation. It is clear that Ms. Smit has sought private benefits from the judgment. That's not a good start to a fucking cost hearing, is it?
No.
And then...
No, it's going to go tits up fairly soon, yeah.
It's not good. This is in the judgment, which is that Smit herself proclaimed on the day that the police actions were, quote, great PR for me. She relied upon her arrest to further her cause both on the day and subsequently, which is exactly how this court case played out. It's all so fucking predictable. It is a fair assessment. I mean, despite this sort of usual rah-rah about how bad the mainstream media is, Monica has been doing a vanity tour of A Current Affair, Sky News, the usual suspects, preaching the injustice of having won a court case but having court costs ruled against her. That's not right. That's not an Aussie fair go. It's actually a conspiracy against
It's not the spirit of Anzac.
We're being silenced by the spirit of Anzac. Yeah. This is just a normal legal process. We're going to go into it. But just to give you an idea of who the usual suspects are, Frank Chung, who's just an anti-vaxxer journo who sucks, wrote a puff piece on her with the smallest mention of the settlement. It's like, dude, just say why she had costs against her. Just explain it. It'll take you a paragraph. Nah, no time for that. We're not here for the truth. We're here for a puff piece for clicks that cookers will share. Anyway, bless his heart. So, yeah, I mean, look, it comes down to the fact that this was a public interest case. If you think that Monica Smit's level of clout on the internet is a public interest.
And as it stands, we are looking at a balancing act. Monica has costs. Victoria, the state of Victoria, has costs. But Monica won 2 out of 3. So she should pay 33% of their costs, and the state should pay the other 2/3.
You think so, right? That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, not quite.
No. So, Monica, of course, who has used this court proceeding as a PR stunt to maintain her fleeting relevance in the so-called freedom movement, posted video updates as she went along, and these were quite revealing at times. One of them let slip that during pre-trial mediation, VicPol, or the state of Victoria as such, offered Monica $15,000 as a settlement.
Crikey, she's lost 11 grand just on the pay.
Yeah, just on the top. Yeah,
really
it doesn't end there. They were also going to pay her costs. which are a point of contention, and we'll continue to talk about them through this piece, but she did incur some costs, as she did apparently have representation from, I believe, Gareth Rogers, her reignite legal lawyer. Their plan was basically to approach this, I think, as a reignite legal project, but then when Gareth walked away from the case, she had to self-represent. It seems like the reason why he walked away is coming up in a second, but let's just give you a little background on Gareth. If you don't know, he was famously referred to the Legal Services Commission in Queensland after being told that his, quote, incompetence is a liability to the profession.
That's not good.
It's not good. It's not good. He really fucked up one of those anti-vax nurse things. So badly, in fact, that she had a costs award against her, and the judge or the magistrate, or I think it was actually a member, it was the tribunal, I can't remember. Either way, the lawyer wore the costs.
Yeah, that's rare.
That's really rare. Having costs for your client put on you as a lawyer is like a real haddock in the face. It's not good. The funny thing is that as much as Gareth sucks as a lawyer, and I can say that, I mean, it's public record, he even knows what a Caldebank offer is. Well, it looks like he did, because it seems like what he did is Gareth said, take the settlement, it's more than you'll ever get, and if you don't take it, you're going to have costs against you. And Monica said, no, this is my moment, fuck you, and walked away from the settlement offer to proceed with litigation. And he decided that this was probably not wise for his tattered legal career.
Yeah. So Mon has knocked back to 15 large, and plus her costs paid for. And that is the Caldebank offer is, you might have seen these listeners a few times yourselves, the without prejudice. We are offering you this now without prejudice.
Save as to costs.
Yep. And if you reject it, all bets are off.
Basically.
That's what the Caldebank offer is, isn't it?
It basically is, yeah.
A Caldebank offer is a way for the court to prevent needless litigation. It can be used rather cynically and tactically to scare an opponent, but it basically means that you are offered a settlement figure and your damages are less than the settlement figure. Then you have to pay the other party's costs, and the defence are on the hook for your costs up until the offer was made, which I guess is whatever Gareth was charging for his time. We'll get to those costs in a minute.
Yeah, so basically that might sound sort of insane and backwards, but it is in line with the idea that going to court is expensive, annoying and boring and should be avoided, and I fully agree with this. If someone was to crack at you in court and you give them fuck off money and they still refuse to settle and they force you to go to court and waste your time and money, they should pay for that privilege.
Yes, well, that's how it works. That's not should. We're not talking about some sort
it's
of
not fucking
moral one,
perfect.
but
The legal
is
system
the law.
Sucks. Yeah, but it is the law, yeah.
The entire practical reasoning behind the Caldebank offer fits this case perfectly. The state was happy for Monica to scream from the rooftops about vindication and a win against the cops.
Totally.
There was no gag order. They said it was suggested by her that there was, and she was
pulled up fucking right away.
Pulled up, yeah. Monica wanted a week, 2 weeks in court because she wanted to make content. So she got what she wanted. The lawyers for the state of Victoria played her like a fiddle by offering her a decent settlement, having a good look at her and saying, hello, ego, hello, monstrous ego.
Yeah, you're going to get 10K tops.
Knowing that even if she won, it was unlikely she would be awarded that amount. And bam, Caldebanked.
Yeah, she got Caldebank right in the face. So, I don't want to turn this whole thing into an extended law lecture because I fucking could.
Yeah, that would be boring.
I'm all about it. But there is a point here that might be important later, and I'm doing a lot of this from memory because you can't really record the bloody hearings, and I can only steal so much from Vexatious Litigants post. But the Caldebank offers, if done according to procedure, may result in costs being calculated on an indemnity basis. What the fuck is that? Is legal speak, right? I will simplify this for you. There's ordinary basis costs, which is your general costs, fees, disbursements, expenses. They call them party costs, very simple. Then there's indemnity, special costs. That's if you've been a real dick about it, or if something like a Caldebank offer comes up. There are technicalities around this, and it gets a bit tricky, but basically the indemnity cost is where you cover your costs, you cover your lawyers, but you also cover your sandwiches, your bus fare, and your cigarettes.
Well, yeah, your so we say external costs.
Yeah, I mean, you can really roll with it. Generally speaking, when someone wins their costs, they don't really get their costs back, and unless they get an indemnity cost ruling, because going to court fucking sucks, and you shouldn't do it. But when you get costs, you get like 80% back or some shit. Like, who knows?
It's around about that. Yeah, I know of a fellow who's that's his business, is assessing costs and goes back to the court and determines what those costs are. So he, at any time in his office, he will have enormous boxes full of documents that he has to sift through and determine costs on each
fucking receipts and shit. Yeah, sandwiches, cigarettes, just nightmare. Obviously, you can't really claim cigarettes, but that's by the way. So when it comes down to this sort of Caldebank rule, it's a common law rule, which makes it much more vague. It's an old English case, and it's a general rule that's applied with discretion. Vaxi posted the summary of the cost judgment in a lot more precise way and posted the actual rule that applies here, which is Order 2608 of the County Court Civil Procedure Rules in Victoria.
If an offer of compromise is rejected, the rules state that it is on an ordinary or party/party basis, or ordinary or party basis, not indemnity. So the rules say in this situation you can't claim for durries and donuts, only if the plaintiff offers a compromise and the defence rejects it. Do you see costs done on indemnity as per the rules?
Basically, yeah. So that's the catch there. So that wasn't the case here. She gets standard. And I don't want to get caught too much in the weeds here, but we'll just go to the numbers. This is what Vaxi's post basically said. Paraphrase for brevity, and I added a little bit to explain. But the defendant pays Monica $4,000 in damages plus statutory interest of $13.75.67. Make sure you don't round that up. And then Monica pays the cost for Melissa Wilson, who is the witness that she tried to force to travel from Cairns to Melbourne to appear in person for reasons that are absurd and silly. And her costs, I think, when I heard when I was watching it, were about $11,000.
That's right.
Monica's paying $9,500. And then the defendant pays Monica's cost up until she rejected the agreement on a standard basis.
That's the day when she said no to the Caldebank offer.
Yes. And then like 48 hours after, like as if she's like visited a lawyer in the meantime or some shit. I think it's part of the law. Anyway. And that would have been Gareth, basically. Gareth, I think, was involved. You know, I might be wrong. And then like application fees to courts, printer, toner and paper. You know, the little stickers that she probably puts on the pages to keep track of the chapters. You know, unfortunately, no. So now Monica is paying 70% of the defendant's costs from when she walked away from the settlement, which is a lot of money. This will be 70% of Victoria's costs minus her costs, which she claimed to be something like $40,000. And as we were saying before, it's not fucking $40,000. I
would doubt it very much.
In the courts, in the cost hearing, Monica insinuated that her costs would have involved her time spent on the case, and I believe that's...
You can't charge an hourly rate if you're self-represented.
No, you really can't claim costs. If you're self-represented, you're saving money, but you're also not getting paid. The one thing apparently you can do is you can prove that you've lost income. Tricky, considering that Monica is just a little bit unemployed. I mean, she's employed by Reignite Legal, and I think that she famously said that her weekly wage is $500. So,
well, that's a long time ago. And is that legal thing still alive? I mean, Reignite Democracy Australia is dead.
I don't think it's dead.
Well,
I think this is the
tax have a thing to say about that, Joe.
Well, we'll see, won't we? It's going to be an interesting one in that regard.
There were people she employed there who were all given their marching orders.
Yes, that would have been the case after the fundraising ran dry. God, it's just been a mismanagement nightmare. Look, I would say, generally speaking, I'm guessing, my guess is as credible as hers, maybe $15,000 in application fees, a few grand to Gareth, you know.
Yeah.
Gareth there begging and pleading for her not to proceed with litigation because she's going to go bankrupt. So, look, when it came down to it, the state of Victoria estimated their costs at the hearing at something like $350,000. 70% of that, $250. Let's call it $240. You know, minus a few things out.
Yeah, I did the maths on this. It's $240. Let's call it $250,000.
Now, this was actually a controversial thing on Twitter where I had a lot of very well-intended people saying, "Yeah, it's actually $240K, bro." But in situations like this, it would not surprise me if the Victorian government decided to turn around and say, "Look, what we're going to do is we're going to make it maybe $150. Let's negotiate down a little bit." I don't think they're going to go for sue her blood. I don't think Monica will admit that if they do compromise on that, because realistically they have no reason to do so. But they can just give her a break. And I think they will. But we'll see what happens. That's just my gut feeling.
Yeah, the law states that costs will be calculated on the ordinary party basis unless the court otherwise orders. So Tran did make an example of Monic and otherwise order, but followed the rules and gave her a 30% discount for the vague public interest element to the case. But why does this matter?
Well, you see, if she otherwise ordered, she could have made it smaller, made it bigger, because that's the judge's discretion. But she decided to go along with the rule, give her a 30% discount, benefit of the doubt, the idea that maybe there was some public interest in it. And the reason why it matters is because, yes, ladies and gentlemen, she is going back for her hat.
Yeah, that's right. Lion's Den, and escaped that, but decided to go back for the hat. As
very, very silly. So this time
Justice Michael Lee once opined in regard to Brucey Lemon.
That is the exact quote I was going for. So she's getting a lawyer. She's getting several lawyers, in fact, because law is very hard. But she is appealing the cost decision, and she's getting her followers to pay for it. Now, is this wise? Probably not.
She set up an appeal for this, has she?
Yes. No, she's done. She has through a website called DonorBox. It's very funny. So she's appealing decision, and I think that basically the decision, like Tran's decision, I think is just going to get held. I don't think it's going to get changed. She may very well end up being up for more costs as a result of an appeal. She may end up being there for less. But I don't think it's going to be worth the money, especially considering how much she just seems to be dead set on hiring barristers and brass. The reality is that she's probably going to end up wearing Victoria's costs on the appeal and just putting herself into more debt. That's basically it. She said she wasn't going to fundraise for the cost order, but she's, as we said, fundraising for the legal costs involved in the appeal. The great thing was, and I really enjoyed this, is that like she started off having one of those moments of Monica Smit executive dysfunction where she posted a fundraiser and at 4:04 errored, the link didn't work.
Yeah,
then
saw
she
that.
claimed there was like, what did she claim? It was like a hacker or some sort of thing, like it was already under attack or some shit.
Yeah, there was something like that. There'd been some sort of intrusion. Yeah,
some nonsense. But realistically, she probably just copy and pasted the link wrong. I mean, whoops, I didn't get that last bit. Yeah, cool. So look, it is a harsh cost ruling for sure. It's rough. But she absolutely brought this upon herself. She would have been warned multiple times that after settlement, all bets were off. And she went, you know what? No, I need content more than I need $15,000.
I need my day in court. I need everyone to look at me.
Yes, exactly. I could not say it better. So look, it seems pretty clear from the video she posted before the cost hearing where she admitted that she refused a settlement and was likely liable for costs going up to about $300,000, that she knew exactly what she was fucking in for. But she figured the juice was worth a squeeze, and that's on her. It's an investment in yourself, darling. You've got to invest in yourself. You've got to back
She is
yourself.
said to be, she's looking down the barrel of a $250,000 bill in the mail.
Yeah.
With the skull and crossbones in the corner.
That's
on
the maximum.
the left-hand corner. She's said to be facing bankruptcy. Claims she had $100 in the bank in court. I think the bankruptcy trustees might not accept that. They probably want to have a bit of a longer look and make statutory declarations about her assets and liabilities.
I am thinking the same.
And now, while fines and penalties imposed by a court cannot be discharged by bankruptcy, cost orders can be a provable debt that Monica can discharge over a 3-year bankruptcy process. But it's not as simple as yelling, I declare bankruptcy!
Bankruptcy! Bankruptcy!
and taking a selfie, giving Spring Street the finger. The discharge can be challenged in court, so even if she declares bankruptcy, she may be prevented from discharging the debt if it is found that she is declaring bankruptcy to avoid the debt. Oh, dear. Lawyers, please help.
No, you need Gareth on it. Gareth on the case. He'll fix it. He'll fix it.
Gareth's not keen. So the bankruptcy trustee, you'll have to complete statutory declarations. If you make, and I'm not suggesting that Mon will, if you make a false declaration, then you, depending on the zeal of your creditors, you are looking at some serious criminal charges there if you've lied about that sort of stuff.
I had to wait about 15 seconds there to say, Monica make a false claim on a statutory declaration? No.
Well, if she owns property, and I don't know whether she does or not.
She might.
She owns property at all. If she owns
crypto assets,
crypto.
Not know where they are. There was a link that a guy sent me.
Any asset really. In fact, it must have changed, but my memory of it is that you can't drive around in a car that's worth more than $4,000.
Yeah, there's all sorts of shit like that. I remember doing that. I can't remember what subject it was. I think it was civil procedure.
They must have adjusted that, because if you're driving around in a car that's worth $4,000, that is almost certainly not going to be roadworthy. But
To be fair, I think my car's probably edging 4,000.
Oh, I've got my second car, my Toyota Corolla. That'd be just got 250,000 on the clock. That'd be about a $4,000 car.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot of kilometres.
Anyway, so if I've ever bankrupted, I can drive around in that. But yeah, there are all sorts of limits on what you can and can't do. My memory is that you can't vote as an undischarged.
No,
bankrupt.
surely not.
You certainly can't stand for Parliament.
Well, Rod Cullen found that out.
As Rod Cullen found out. Well, he was also under conviction for larceny, so, there was that.
And offences against Crockety.
But it stays with you for a very long time if you've been bankrupted. Some people are bankrupted by identity theft and all sorts of horrible things.
Yeah.
And it is almost impossible to move away from. And you will have this stain of bankruptcy, whether you've been discharged or not. You'll have this stain of bankruptcy over your credit rating for the rest of your life.
It's not the 1970s where you can go bankrupt and then lose the papers. The internet
not
is
not Bondi's 80s, mate.
Yeah, exactly. The heyday, the Mallorca days.
Well, there you go. This is a classic case, Joel, of fucked around and found out.
Mm-hmm. And going back for a hat to find out more. So this week we were going to look at the not actually mysterious case of Alexis Lorenz. You may not know her. She's a young girl with a horrific genetic condition, a blood condition, that led her to a catastrophic state of health that makes for some fairly gruesome imagery you may have seen on social media. And as they say, never let a crisis go to waste. So Alexis' dad, who is a cooker fucking supreme, he will be damned if his uninsured child will blame his perfect genetics on her ill health. No, it was the vaccines. Of course it fucking was, and now she's a martyr for the cause. Not just the vaccines, but a super dose of 3 vaccines all at once. Oh, my fucking God, it's unheard of. It's like a DTaP never existed. You fucking idiots.
Like most 12-month-old babies have been through, yeah.
Oh, God, it's tiring. Anyway, look, we're going to save that for next week because this episode's already
It's a big story, and it needs a bit more time. And
it's full of
we are running short of it.
Yes, and look, we do have another story here that you wanted to mention because this got your goat. What's getting your goat?
This did get my goat. I dislike anti-vaxxers at the best of times, but
yes,
this is a truly awful human being. Unfunny comedian and shit actor. Rob Schneider is a massive anti-vaxxer, as we all know. He sunk to new depths on X today with the following post in the wake of the death. Not a sudden death, by the way. Not a died suddenly instance, but a death from brain cancer. One was long and slow and drawn out. Death from brain cancer of Congolese-born NBA defensive great Dikembe Mutombo. And this is what Schneider had to say less than 24 hours after the announcement of the 8-time NBA All-Stars death just yesterday.
Rest in peace, ... I'm sure this is just, brackets, another coincidence. But I took a pass on the jab, and I'm not going to let anyone I know, brackets, and who will listen, get it either.
So no surprises there from the appalling piece of shit Rob Schneider.
So this is basically what he said in the form of a quote tweet. So that caption up there was attached to a tweet from Mutombo, which featured a video of the basketball legend with this text caption.
This holiday season, stay informed from trusted sources like at WHO and get vaccinated. Only together can we be safe and defeat COVID. And hashtag the son of Congo, because he was Congolese born, and NBA cares.
Yeah, it's like the charitable wing of NBA.
Yeah, that's right. So he was pro-vaccine.
He was, and that's why this cunt
Mutombo
is playing a died suddenly thing on him because he's a prick. So Mutombo will be remembered as a humanitarian who used his fortune earned in basketball to improve living conditions in his native homeland of the DRC, otherwise known as Democratic Republic of Congo. Good fucking person. He also helped fund basketball teams in Africa, get them started, get them equipment, get them jerseys and shit, and was, for some reason, a supporter of the Special Olympics. Don't know why, just a good guy. Cool.
Good guy.
Just, yeah. So Rob Schneider, on the other hand, is the guy that says, "You can do it," in vaguely racist cameos in Adam Sandler films. He's a talentless fuck who eventually stopped getting roles from Sandler, and I believe he recently admitted that most of his success was basically sympathy roles given as a favour from Sandler.
Sandler is known to be an extremely generous person who can't really say no.
Yeah, even though Adam Sandler's had some real stinker roles, I really like him as a person. He's a fucking good guy.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
He'd be an amazing guy to be mate with. As we can see here, this is the thing, when this man of his minor talent, he could only really afford to keep buying those shit hats he wears if he pivots to being a cancel culture fuckknuckle to sell tickets to amphitheaters, where he complains about how hard it is being a wealthy white man. And, of course, when it got really desperate, he did the old Russell Brand and converted to Catholicism in 2023. Wow,
yeah,
that's
there
embarrassing.
You go.
What a cunt.
So I saw Russell Brand quoting from the book of Genesis on X the other day.
Oh, good.
He's been doing a bit of baptisms and what have you. But he
was that the famous quote, "It's only wrong if you get caught, just convert to Catholicism and be fine"? Because that's Genesis quote.
I just loved him quoting from Genesis because it's like, this isn't, this is the Bible. This is the Bible, Russell. It's not your 116-page fucking books.
Bookie wook. Yeah.
This is a big book. And it seems like he's just got to the first chapter, Genesis, and gone, "Oh, geez, there's a lot of words here."
Yeah.
There's so many pages. I don't think I can finish. I don't think he's actually got past Genesis. I really don't. He might have flicked to the front. He might have flicked to the back just to find out how it ends.
Or checking the index to see if his name's mentioned. What a fucking
There's no index
prick.
in the Bible. But I can tell you, Russell, Jesus did die in the end. Well, let's face it. The Romans did it, and the Jews did it a bit too. But anyway,
don't make their plight any harder. They've had enough rough couple of years.
So anyway, Schneider's now a Catholic, and
he's got no moral basis to come at Mutombo. He deserves to eat shit for this, and I hope he does eat a lot of shit for this. Fuck this guy.
He did cop a shellacking on X over it, and one wonders whether he does it just for that. Just because
he's like some a fucking masochist?
Yeah, some sort of masochistic weirdness, yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't fucking surprise me.
Anyway, fuck you, Schneider. No wonder your daughter hates you, you scumbag. You remember his daughter came out and gave him a pasting?
He fat-shamed her through childhood.
Yeah,
what a cunt.
He sent her to fat camp, but that wasn't the worst of it. He was just a hopeless, negligent parent.
Just a shitty, deadbeat father who's now a fucking redeemed Catholic on the fucking Russell Brand circuit.
We fired you. We sacked you. We dismissed you. As what? As garbage, because that's all you are. You're a criminal. You're a traitor. And you're going to the biggest barbecue in history. So from Christmas dinner to you are the dinner.
Thank you. That's what I'll go with.
A woman who cannot be named has gone full SovCit in a trial in the Wollongong District Court, where she was standing trial for kidnapping her own child from a court-appointed supervisor.
Oh, you don't get a court-appointed supervisor unless you kind of need one.
There's trouble.
It's problematic.
According to the Daily Telegraph, on the 30th of September, which was yesterday, Joel, take it away.
The woman, who cannot be identified for legal reasons, was standing trial in Wollongong District Court last month, accused of kidnapping her child from the Department of Communities and Justice.
Yes, Lloyd, just want to interrupt and say she can't be named due to, this is to prevent the identification of the child.
Yeah.
So it's not some sort of mad, the courts are in charge of everyone's identity sort of shit that she probably thinks is
probably does, yeah.
But go on.
Yeah, they often equate this stuff to like elites pulling the strings, but realistically it's just procedure. So sometimes it is elites pulling the strings, though, just saying. The prosecution case stated the woman took the child from a care worker during an access visit after handing her a statement and notice with her thumbprint for identification.
Ooh.
Oh, see, I haven't looked at any of this.
Go.
So this is all new to me. I am with you, listeners. I'm enjoying this as it comes. Wow. Okay. It asserted she was a living being sovereign to this land. Oh, this is already so good. Who hereby renounce and reject my former engagement with the courts and their cronies and disregard all orders as null and void.
That should be the end of the matter.
That should be the end of the matter. I'm not going to jail. Null and void. Can't you read? Didn't you learn Latin in school? Yeah. So the woman was arrested north of Sydney with a child taken from the offender and placed with a relative. Good call.
So your standard SovCits stuff with a bit of kidnapping thrown in.
Yeah, it's like funny sad, but it's funny.
Actually, the old thumbprint and living woman's pseudo law didn't pass muster, so the woman was charged with kidnapping.
Oh, injustice.
And that meant the woman would, of course, represent herself in court because no one else is going to step up.
Fucking do it, yeah.
In fact, many did step up and she rejected them all. So she represented herself in court, turned and proceeded to turn the proceedings into a circus and malign officers of the court, including the judge. The telly story goes on.
Okay, so one of the more comical sequences involved the woman badgering her teenage son trying to give evidence. Wow, are you fucking serious? Okay. Quote, at one point her son said, just ask the questions, bro.
That was in the judgment from Judge Hazler, yeah.
Brilliant. That's so good.
Just ask the questions, bro.
The judge stopped the questioning and excused the teenage son with, quote, I have a duty to stop the child being harassed. I'm sorry you have wasted your time, His Honour said. The woman whined, quote, don't listen to this parrot.
She's calling the judge a parrot.
It's so
Look,
good.
you're facing a decent holiday on a kidnapped blue, so why not insult the judge?
He's a
Maybe
parrot.
a couple of witnesses too. What a terrific idea.
Yeah, fuck him.
One of the more comical sequences involved. Oh, sorry, we've done that. Sorry, we have to cut that out.
That's all right.
Just note it.
But how?
It's just a cut and paste thing that I fucked up.
That's all right. Let me just have a look here. Yeah, just go from.
Yeah, no, look, I'll do this.
Here.
Look, you're facing a decent holiday on a kidnapped blue. Oh, no, okay. Sorry, I have repeated this. No, okay.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Just go from there. It's fine.
No, look, you're facing a decent holiday on a kidnapped blue, so why not insult the judge? Maybe a couple of witnesses too. What a terrific idea. Joel.
Two of the woman's adult children. Two of the women's adult children were also called to give evidence, with one literally called on the prosecutor's phone due to equipment failure. Judge Hazler said, ladies and gentlemen, it's embarrassing. She's now having a private conversation with her son on the prosecutor's phone, and none of this is relevant. Jesus.
And then the situation escalated.
Excuse me, can you hear this, jury? Would you mind if I approach so you can hear this over the judge? The woman is insane. The judge told her not to approach the jury, surprisingly enough, but she ignored him with His Honour noticing the closest juror cringe and look away as he pressed the duress alarm. Oh, my God. Wow. Quote, leave now. Please leave. Please leave. Please leave. Judge Hazler ordered the jury and sheriffs and armed police, who the woman described as Ninja Turtles, entered the court. Oh, my God, Ninja Turtles. She's great. I almost like her. The woman claimed Judge Hazler had made up a story about the juror cringing because he could not handle the truth.
Yeah, he could not handle the truth. A Few Good Men really has got a lot to answer for as a movie. We've got this handling of we cannot handle the truth.
Why can't we just watch this?
Love that. Love the phrase.
To be fair, that scene is incredible.
Yeah, no, look, it's great. It's great. Jack Nicholson, of course, it's a wonderful piece of acting, but it has just been that phrase has been hijacked a lot by SovCits, but a lot by idiots. It just generally goes, no, that's because you can't handle the truth. Anyway, Judge Hazler was talking to the jury, asking them to leave because he did not want the trial to be perverted anymore.
No.
And as the trial wore on, things predictably got much worse.
Really? Okay. So, as the trial reached the end of the fourth day, the woman attempted to subpoena witnesses as part of a defense case, a procedural process which should have been completed months prior.
Mm-hmm.
Or, can I call John? He's
we can just put him on speakerphone.
I've got him on my phone. Oi, turn up your volume, cunt. Judge Haisler, in his decision, said he saw the names the woman wished to subpoena past the 11th hour included that, quote, they did not appear to be people who had relevant evidence to give. That's judge speak for sure. With further witnesses and adjournment off the table, the woman began spiraling out of control. Are you telling me she hasn't already spiraled out of control?
No, she's just started the spiraling.
Oh, this is the fucking entree, not the American version of entree, the French one. Quote, we've got a weekend ahead. I want you all to have a lovely weekend, the woman told the jury. Quote, away from this courthouse, away from the yappy dogs in the ears, and thank you for being here, but we are going to have to adjourn.
She's
adjourning the court.
Character has taken upon herself to adjourn proceedings for the day.
Amazing.
And
Isn't
Judge
she great?
Haisler, understandably, well, it was a line that he hoped would not be crossed, but had been crossed.
Oh, yes. That's very fucking good. I love the yappy dogs. What yappy dogs? Are there dogs in the courthouse? Is that happening?
Angry judge with the accused attempting to adjourn proceedings.
Oh,
Angry
Jesus.
judge. I mean, this guy, he has got the patience of job but yeah, every man has his breaking point, Joe.
I actually have no idea what the fucking patience of Job thing is, but it's something biblical, and I'm sure Rusty
It's
Rocket's
biblical.
old
It's biblical.
Russell Brand gets it.
When you're a Christian for a bit longer than Russell
In
Brand.
3 minutes?
Yeah, it's in the
I'll
Old
ask Rob
Testament.
Schneider.
So
He'll know.
it's there.
So finally, after the judge had tolerated enough, quote, ma'am, you are now under arrest for contempt of court. And apparently, as he said this, woman just continued to berate him randomly. And he said, please take her into custody. Just
She's actually
fuck
gone.
off.
And I don't have the quotes here, but she's gone, no. That's not going to happen.
Oh, really? Yeah. I'm sure the Ninja Turtles beg to differ.
And the judge and the Ninja Turtles did beg to differ.
Yeah.
It's not clear if she was formally charged with contempt, not on the report anyway, but she was led away to the cells to ponder her fate and possibly do a bit of homework reading a textbook on 17th century Portuguese maritime law.
Important reading for anyone. Yeah.
This is the way all SovCits should be treated when they corrupt proceedings with their bullshit. Well done, that judge. Off you go.
Yeah. Goodbye.
You don't have to actually go through the process of a contempt charge, but just take her away, put her in the lockup, and when she calms down, she can come back in here and wants to show some respect for the court.
If she calms down.
So well done, that man. Well done, that judge. And then, of course, it came for the much put upon jury to consider its verdict. And the verdict was, well, no surprises, guilty. She was found guilty. It's a fairly straightforward matter. She either did or she didn't.
Got caught red-handed.
And there was a witness in the form of the court-appointed supervisor who would say one thing. And so this was not even a battle around that. It was just waste the court's time.
Yeah, just procedural nonsense.
Judge Haisler has now delivered his judgment, Joel.
Oh, well, in concluding his written decision, Judge Haisler delivered a blunt assessment of the woman's performance. Quote, the woman chose to represent herself. And he continued to say, the woman chose not to seek advice from lawyers or any guidance from me about her conduct of her trial. She chose not to listen. She chose to obstruct the trial. She chose to proceed on the basis that the laws of New South Wales did not apply to her. And she chose to be rude and offensive to the prosecution, witnesses, the judge, and the jury. Yes, she did. Quote, she did so in the presence of her jury. She was fit to be tried. Her actions were deliberate and considered. She was, in all respects, the maker of her own misfortune. Yes, she was.
Will remain in custody ahead of her sentencing in December.
Which assumes a bit of a
couple of months away. She's now been convicted of kidnap.
Yep.
Remanded in custody, as I say, and looking like a decent holiday, you'd have to say. So. She is looking like a holiday, a longish holiday, I would imagine.
We'll find out in December. I'm not sure whether she was formally charged with contempt, as I say, but it doesn't really matter because whatever sentence might have been imposed for the contempt is going to get overridden by the kidnap conviction.
It would be concurrent, I imagine.
It's not a good thing to have on your antecedents, by the way.
No, it's not
conviction
perfect.
for kidnapping your own son.
The only thing you can really do is just get sectioned. But the thing with cookers in general is that like pharmaceuticals are not something they're into. So the idea of having SSRIs and lithium thrown down your throat to try and straighten you out is something that they'd rather do time.
They would too, every day of it. Anyway, so we've got to take a quick look at the scoreboard, and that tells us SovCits 0. The man, well, we're not sure yet, but the man or the judge probably will hand it down a sentence. I'm going to say a year or two, Joe. What do you reckon?
You'd think so. I don't know what
Maybe
the
more
offence
for
carries,
the insults, but you can't really do that. We'll keep you posted on that, listeners. Yes, but another shock loss to the pseudo law brigade.
I hope she appeals, and I hope it's streamed on YouTube because that sounds like a fucking.
That sounds like some cabaret. I need to see some video of that.
I wish I saw that court case. It has been a huge week in Pete Evans, with the craggy-faced conspiracy theorist hard at work to leave his mark on the world and influence people to be better humans. I made that up. He's not really. I mean, I haven't even looked at Pete's Telegram for ages, and since he auto-deletes his post after a week, which is a very smart move, I just get the sort of dregs of whatever sort of obvious Russian propaganda Pete's fallen for over the past few days.
I'm very pro-Russian, yeah.
He fucking loves Putin. 46 posts. That's all I had. I cracked open Telegram today and thought, you know what? Let's get deep in the weeds of 46. So he's slowed down. He's slowed down. You know, the knees go first, then the brain. I've threatened to pull Pete from the end of the show before, and it's always been hollow.
He's got to
Just like my promises to do Multi-Level Marketing 3, the legal wrap-up, Cooker Economics. I mean, look, it's going into the graveyard of promises. But I tell you what, unless he does something funny or interesting, he's getting cut. This is a promise that's really easy to keep, by the way. Because
it's just about time.
Oh, I'm fucking bored. Babbitt is objectively much funnier. He really is an idiot.
He even looks funny. You know, you can just look at him and get a laugh.
He's a potato. It's great. Like, it's just so beautiful. He's just the absolute epitome of the MAGA chard who's constantly angry at the current thing that Putin's sponsored propagandists have sort of wanted idiots to be angry at, and he thinks he's a free thinker. I love it. I love him. He's a fucking idiot.
He's a complete moron.
But in the meantime, we're kind of stuck with Pete. So
not for much longer, surely.
No, we should set him off with a good hurrah, but fuck, this is just sad. So the thing that I could glean from this, which was hard, we know Pete hates the mainstream media and doesn't trust it, and I tell you what, the only thing that matches that feeling is how much he loves getting a mention.
He does.
Thrives on it. And to be fair, his sass is pretty good. In a piece of journalistic brilliance published in the online edition of New ID, the headline, former MKR Judge Pete Evans makes shock return to Kicktain. And like, come on, guys. Kitchen's not a hard word.
Come on.
Pete had a go at a current affair.
I'd blame the art guys for that. I would blame the art guys.
There's no sub-editors anymore.
See me, big red circle around Kick 10 and say, see me, read this.
But the thing is that, like, you know, this is why Mark Southcott had a fucking job doing this, because he would stop that from happening. But now,
I'm going to say anyone with just about, anyone with sort of grade 4 literacy skills is going to pick that up.
But of course, the irony is that this article is of such low consequence that they probably even know it's fucked, and they just don't even bother fixing it because it's just so pointless. But anyway, Pete had a crack. He is pretty funny. He, just as a bit of a side note, he had a go at the current affair guys because they had a pedophile in the production. That was a bit of a child porn thing. And when they sort of ambushed him outside of his gates, he just kept on going at them about the fact that they had a pedo on the payroll.
That was it. He had his lines all worked out.
Oh, it was very good. Every now and then I'm like, oh, Pete, fine. So here, you say what he said. This is good.
Oh, he said, it takes 2 journalists at New Idea to spell kitchen wrong. He hasn't capitalised New Idea. I think that might be a sort of a backhander.
I think it's a backhander.
A bit of a backhander from Pete there, but listen, mate, if you people who live in glass houses and all that sort of shit, you're a semi-literate fucking dishwasher, man.
You're not wrong. Look, I will say it is a fair call, though. It's pretty embarrassing, and there were 2 journalists credit.
And it is a shitty magazine.
Oh, it was a dumb article. But the sad thing is, when it comes down to it, like I say, without a sub-editor, I mean, they're just floundering. Okay, fine, we'll just leave it there. 3 people read it? It's just the nature of mainstream media these days. So the article focuses on the incredibly important news that Pete Evans posted a video of himself making a watermelon shiso salad on his Evolve Network business account on Instagram. He's back. He's making shiso salad. Fuck, this is news.
What the hell is shiso?
I had to look this up, and it is an Asian lettuce leaf. And
Yummo.
You can find it at Asian supermarkets, or if you're Pete Evans, you grow it on your 19-acre property. It's probably more than that, to be honest. So then they go on to mention that he was photographed with his teenage daughter at the beach, which is totally cool and normal because I personally think that it's a really good idea to take photos of people with their children without their consent.
Yeah, that's not pleasant either. A New Idea have got a bit of form in this regard.
Yeah. So there you have it. Pete hasn't been entirely idle. He's made a video and he visited Sydney to spend time with his daughter.
Oh, cool. So that's from a previous marriage, I presume.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So we got him this week. We got him real good this week. Yeah. Cool. So this is enthralling stuff. And I just remind you, listeners, join the Patreon to get more of this content on a regular basis.
Look, this should be our motto. The conditional release program. We're better than New Idea.
Yeah. I mean, fucking really. And getting paid a fraction of the salary. So otherwise, Pete is on the anti-fluoride bandwagon, which is, look, I've been there, but he's making the fairly obvious claim that fluoride above safe levels is not safe in drinking water.
Well, that's, yeah. I mean,
it's a thing now. Yeah, there was a study that said that fluoride...
If you have too much oxygen, it'll kill you,
It lowers IQ in children above safe levels.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, which is problematic if you're above safe levels. It's good. I'm glad we're having that chat. Anyway, look, I think this is basis to give that man an honorary doctorate because he's now a scientist.
Yeah.
He's figured it out.
And not just in cooking and stuff.
No.
Philosophy. I'm thinking philosophy.
Not just steak broiling, fluoride. So also there's shit about Bitcoin. I don't care. P. Diddy being linked to Obama, not Trump, who, is more... Anyway. Bitching about Ukraine being the bad guys because he's an idiot. Yeah, that's our Pete. He loves a bit of imperialism. Hates it a back chat from the invaded. Look, just lie down and think of England. Shut the fuck up, Ukraine. Just take it like a champ.
Yeah.
Likes Trump, doesn't like Kamala. Boring. Hillary Clinton, also bad, also boring.
Yeah, but she's not really news at the moment, is she?
Oh, well, on Pete's Telegram she is. Yeah, you can see why he's getting cut.
It's bad. It's boring. I think we've got to cut him. I think we've got to do it now. And I think he needs to be just dispatched to the fucking bin, never to be returned. No big farewell episode, nothing like that. Fuck off over there, all the way over there. And then when you've got to there, Pete, then fuck off some more.
Keep walking, keep walking. I mean, if he does something interesting, we might bring him back. Something inflammatory. I mean, just anything.
I don't think he's capable of it.
I think he's gone. I think the wind's out of his sails. I think he's lost his spark.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, I think we'll all agree that segment was boring and not worth doing. But at the end of the day, man.
Pete, you've really let everybody down, Pete. I want you to know that.
In the words of a great man, fuck off and keep fucking off. Something else, fuck off.
And you have been listening to the Conditional Release Program with your host, Jack the Insider and Joel Hill. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. And if you've enjoyed our bullshit, throw us a 5-star review on your podcast app.
Jack, found on Twitter at Jack the Insider. If you're checking it, Joel at Crunchers with a K. I'm checking Twitter until the election, and then I'm just over it. So a Facebook page you can find fairly easily. It's called the Conditional Release Program Shitposting Group, also Conditional Release Program. Just look it up. It'll be fine. Running a podcast is really fucking hard, and we are not Brent Lee, who is incredible at this. we suck. So please do it for us. Or if you could just give us a Brent Lee that is just a marketing intern for us, we would probably
even
be
better than telling us what great guys we are by way of review. You could sling us a few bob. And
yes.
the Patreon is up and running. We ask listeners to consider throwing a few dollars our way.
Yeah, it goes for as little as $5 a month. And there is a massive amount of back content on there. And we do release the more, what's that word, defamatory content on there.
Yes, the Black Label. We do tend to go hard. And damn the courts. Damn.
Yes. Send me a concerns notice and I'll piss on it and send it to a magistrate. That'll show them. They love that.
And not taking any shit from the Ninja Turtles either.
No, you will though.
And finally, all feedback, tips and death threats should be sent to the conditional release program at gmail.com. It's got a "the" in the front of it. We would love to hear from you, even if it's to tell us you're voting for Ralphie Babbitt at the next election because he makes so much goddamn horse sense.
You know, common sense isn't common, but it is with him. He just knows how I feel.
Dead to me, Pete.
Isn't he just? That was so shit.
Ralph Babbitt. He's my man.
I'm so bored of Pete. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
I don't think I ever want to talk to any of those people.
Fuck me!